Friday night, March 10th, 2017. Jay, who was a gang member and also an alleged rival of the Marvel Salvatrucha, or the MS13s, was cornered by Armando Guzman, a known MS13 shot caller, and 3 other gang members, beaten up, forced into their car, and driven to the entrance of the Los Angeles River in North Hollywood, California. The MS13 members believed he had crossed out the gang's graffiti, and they were out for revenge. After arriving to the river, he was choked out by the MS13 members and dragged into the Los Angeles National Forest, where he was dismembered with a machete. Guzman then carved out his heart, and the other men took pictures before flinging his body parts into the canyon. Mayhem, machetes, and murder. This is the nature of this gang, not only California, but around the world. This is the reputation they're known for. This is the MS13s. What are the CALI'S most dangerous? Let's get into it. From dismemberments to shootouts, the MS13s have a history of violence in not only California, but around the world that is almost unmatched when it comes to the gang's brutality.
Chris Blatchford joins us with a look at how that small Central American country is being terrorized by gangs with roots in Los Angeles. Chris.
Well, in that nation's largest city, San Pedro Sula, sociologists say just 5 years ago, there was no gang problem. Now it's estimated the town has at least 35,000 gang members and a war that started on the streets of L.A.
Now, it's the biggest gang in Honduras, exported from the streets of L.A. to the streets of Central America. The gang wars are now on in Honduras, in the barrios of San Pedro Sula just last year. Police say 125 MS and 18th Street gang members were killed, most of them under the age of 17. Victor, who used to hang around with 18th Street, tells how he was shot in the chest after MS gangsters chased him off a bus. His arm and hand are left paralyzed. He's 19.
This violence traces back to before the gang's formation in the mid-1980s. In 1979, a civil war that lasted 12 years erupted in El Salvador between leftist guerrillas and El Salvador communists against corrupt military dictatorship, with this war killing over 75,000 people. Yeah, it got crazy out there. It's stories of mass murders, dismembered body parts left on the road for days, and lots of other gruesome shit. The Civil War caused a mass migration of nearly 1 million people to the United States, particularly Los Angeles, California. These immigrants left a war-torn country looking for a better way of life. But unfortunately, they found themselves in another war zone, this one being dominated by street gangs.
In Operation Desert Storm, fewer than 200 Americans died. In the streets of Los Angeles last year, 690 died in gang wars. There are some 100,000 gang members, homeboys they call themselves, in 850 Los Angeles gangs.
Darkness descends on Los Angeles, and the gangs and their guns hit the streets again. Shot in the leg, a gang member runs for his life. Gang members scatter. Another skirmish and the bloody war is over. No one was killed this time, but not for lack of trying.
The Pico Union area was already heavily populated by gang members, junkies, and corrupt cops. Central American immigrants, they had to adopt. But what do you get when you have a group of people who have been oppressed, ostracized against, and often have to walk down their streets through the face of violence? You get kids who start to fight back for themselves. You get small groups that start to form and protect themselves. You get the MS13s. This group started in the mid-1980s. In the very beginning, originally starting off as the MS Stoners. The MS Stoners were a group of young delinquent and heavy metal fans who lived in Los Angeles. They go to heavy metal shows and would often wear spiky hair and other rock attire and didn't officially operate as a gang. However, the MS Stoners were still subject to severe racial prejudices and violence against them from other gangs and eventually adopted to their environment. In the mid-1990s, Salvatrucha became associated with the Mexican Mafia, and they added the letter 13 to their name. The number 13 marks the 13th letter of the alphabet, M. Thus, Salvatrucha became MS-13, signifying his loyalty to the Mexican Mafia. In addition, it's alleged that the gang became more militant and grew into a criminal organization under the guidance of Ernesto Darres, who was a former member of the Salvadorian Special Forces, trained in Pamela by United States Green Berets, gained leadership to the MS13 clique in the 1990s, and used his military training to discipline the gang and make them even more militant. The gang started to grow, so did their dangerous reputation. These guys are known for their gruesome murders, with the most covered ones being with weapons like knives, bats, and large jungle and hunting machetes.
We have machetes as a weapon of choice, chained sometimes with a lock, baseball bat.
At one point I feel like, damn, why am I in this? Is that what I'm going for? Taking somebody's loved one and hurting them?
A prime example of this gang's ruthless ways goes back to a crazy situation that played out in May of 2017.
Federal charges have been filed against 4 alleged members of MS13 who police say are behind 10 murders around the valley. The U.S. Attorney's Office says all 4 suspects are from El Salvador and face kidnapping, weapons, and assault charges with intent to commit murder.
It's alleged that Reyes Castillo and 2 other MS13 members banged on and beat up some men in Mendito, California, with butcher knives and meat cleavers. The group retreated back to the vehicle when the victim yelled for a neighbor to call for law enforcement. Well, the men went on the run, and Castillo was caught in Vegas. Before he was caught, it's alleged that from January to March of 2018, Castillo participated in a number of murders in the Las Vegas area. In one situation, an MS13 member and the victim were mad-dogging each other at a nightclub due to a dispute over a woman. Well, after a brief confrontation, Castillo and the 2 other men defused the situation and offered the victim some drugs in the car. Well, he agreed, and he followed the men to the car, and everything went left from there. The 4th member drove the victim and the others to a spot designated by Castillo, where they killed the victim by shooting him and hacking him with a machete. There's no evidence that the group planned to murder when they arrived at the nightclub. They didn't know the victim and they didn't know he would be there, but they targeted him due to the interaction with a member of the group. The only indication that not all 4 men were fully on board with the killing was when the driver hesitated before striking the victim, which allowed the victim to try to escape before all men hacked the victim to death. Castillo was a member of a clique located in Los Angeles, and the murder done in the first story was by a subset of the MS-13s known as the Fulton clique. But the MS-13s are combined of cliques that spread all throughout California. But y'all gotta stick around for why this gang has grown to the point to where they have cliques around not only the nation, but around the world as well, and have memberships of over 100,000.
From West L.A., but living here in the barrio outside the city of San Pedro Sula. His gang is called MS. That stands for Mara Salvatrucha, a gang that originated near 8th and Normandy in Los Angeles.
His nickname is a little tiny.
Now, it's the biggest gang in Honduras, exported from the streets of L.A. to the streets of Central America.
So, like everybody goes there, looking for a better future, and things happen, I got involved in gangs, and here I am, back in Honduras, got deported.
When it comes to memberships and who they accept, no race is excluded. They have Salvadorians, Honduran, Mexicans, and several other nationalities. You just gotta be with the action. And they don't want no fan shit. You gotta have hands, or get it cracking. Bars, nigga. Their gang sign is similar to the rock and roll sign of the Horns hand sign. So if you see someone approach you with this hand sign and he looks a little off, don't question the nigga. He's not trying to rock out with you. Just get up out of there. He's pressing you. Nah, seriously. When it comes to California, the MS-13s are a Sereno gang. Now, I don't know about out of state or out of country, but in California, the gang is attached to the Mexican mafia due to prison politics. Y'all let me know in the comments about out of state or out of country though. Is the gang still attached to the Sereno brand or are they separate? Regardless of affiliation though, the MS-13s are known to go at it with members of the Sereno brand. This brings us to rivals. Locally, MS-13s don't really beef with other Crips or Bloods due to their location. They started off in the Pico unit area in LA, which has a heavy population of Mexicans and Central Americans, so it's pretty much war with other Sereno gangs. Also beef with the Norteño brand and other gangs under this umbrella. But the biggest rivals of the MS-13s, both locally and internationally, is definitely going to be with the 18th Street.
There's different stories to it, right? These are like folk tales, if you will. And the one that's probably more accurate And just like gang stuff, sometimes it starts over a girl. You took my girl,
That's what I
now
heard.
she's messing with
Right,
you.
because at one point, 18th Street and MS13 were actually friendly with each other.
Right.
And then a situation with a girl.
A situation with a girl happened at a party, and I believe it was an 18th Street member that that got shot. And that went ahead and started the war between MS and 18th Streets.
In December 2012, Gabriela D., who was 17 years old, met Diego Reyes at school, and they became romantically involved. Diego, whose moniker was Ryder, had MS13 tattoos, and through her association with Diego, Gabriela began visiting casitas, or drug houses. Diego introduced Gabriela to Kelvin Vallejo, also known as Directo, who was responsible for operating the casitas. She later dropped out of school in March of 2013 and began living at the casita, along with Vallejo, a woman named Wendy, and Anna A. She assisted in drug sales and was paid to sit and drink with the male visitors. Well, Gabriela had relatives and friends who were members of 18th Street, a gang who were the rivals of MS13, and some information indicated her connection with 18th Street gang members. When Gabriela was at the casita, Diego usually took her phone away from her, and other people in the casita used it to send and receive phone calls and texts. Gabriela was worried that MS13 members would discover her ties to 18th Street and harm her. She talked about this to Diego, and he told her not to worry. But in early 2013, Gabriela stopped dating Diego, and later that month, her and Anna were kicked out of the casita, so they stayed the night at the East West Hotel. The next morning, the two returned to the casita, trying to borrow money. Unable to borrow any money, Gabriela and Anna decided to leave. And later that afternoon, they walked back to the East West Hotel. When they arrived, they saw MS13 member Marino Alvarado pacing back and forth in front of the hotel. Vallejo and some bald men drove past him in a gray car as they walked towards the corner of 8th Street. Edward Taverick, a known MS13 member, approached him, with another member, Jose Reyes, on the opposite corner. Taverick told Gabriela that she needed to accompany him to a meeting. She initially refused, asking why she had to go to a meeting if she wasn't a gang member. Well, Anna got concerned that something wasn't right and attempted to get Taverick to postpone the meeting or allow her to accompany Gabriela, but he refused. Gabriela agreed to go with Taverick after he assured her that her damn boyfriend, Panic, would be there. Anna then took Gabriela's phone, agreeing to call her family if something happened, and the group walks off. Taverick and Gabriela walked towards San Marino Street. Ruiz and Alvarado walked parallel to them on the opposite side of the street. After walking for about 2 blocks, Taverick stopped, stepped away from Gabriela, and talked on his cell phone. Meanwhile, Ruiz crossed the street and talked with Gabriela, while Alvarado stayed on the opposite corner, looking from side to side. After around 20 minutes, Taverick walked towards Gabriela, pulled out a small silver gun, and told her she could leave, and said, "Aquí va for la familia," which means more rules here. He then shot her in the chest from a distance of 2.5 feet, walks up, and lets off multiple shots. Gabriela attempted to run, but fell in the street. While she was on the ground, Ruiz stood over her, straddling her body. He pointed a dark-colored gun at her and moved the gun from side to side as he laughed. Taverick, Ruiz, and Alvarado then left the scene. When the cops arrived, Gabriela was laying face down. She had suffered multiple gunshot wounds, but was conscious and pleading for help. She had trouble breathing and enunciating her words, but tried to tell a cop Nino from Normandy shot her. Gabriela underwent surgery and remained in a coma. She had suffered 13 gunshot wounds to her chest, back, neck, and her leg. One of the bullets missed her heart by 1 millimeter. She spent about a month in the hospital. When she awoke from the coma, Gabriela told the detective that Taverick shot her. Ruiz stood over her and pointed the gun at her, and Alvarado acted as a lookout. An eyewitness also testified that he heard gunshots and a woman screaming. He looked out the window and saw Gabriela on the ground. A man was standing over her, pointing a gun at her, and appeared to be shooting her. He said 2 other Hispanic men were on the other side of the street, and all 3 men ran off after the shooting. Ultimately, all MS13 members were convicted of the attempted murder of Gabriela and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. This is just one of the stories on how the MS13s and 18th Street hate each other. And even affiliations can get you caught up. Trust me, there was some gruesome stuff that I couldn't even add, so that's just me keeping it modest. But let's get into why these two gangs are beefing to this day. This rivalry goes back to the 1990s, and it's over what a lot of rivalries and wars are started for. That good old Pinocha, or that for you English speakers. MS13 and 18th Street used to actually be friendly towards each other. They were the only two gangs that accepted Central Americans in their membership at the time, so they had a lot of close members who actually had family in one another's gang. Because of this, they'd often fight together, hang out in each other's hood, and they even partied together. But one night, the two gangs were partying with each other and feeling disrespected in front of his girl, an MS13 member gets into it with the 18th Street member, and the fight immediately breaks out, fired by gunshots. That altercation left one of the members dead and also started a bloody rivalry between the two gangs with multiple bodies being dropped on each side. Sadly, it doesn't look like it's any end in sight. On top of that, this war has even spanned to different states and even countries like El Salvador. Like, they go at it hard. There's stories of same thing, dismemberments in the other countries and states and everything like that. These cats hate each other. Is there any hope though? Is there any hope that this has come to an end, like at all? Y'all let me know in the comments if y'all see anything, any end to this beef or any truce at least for that matter, any neutral standing between the two gangs. Y'all let me know in the comments, man. Let's have a conversation about it. Prominent figures from the set. Who the OGs, the YGs? The MS13s have a lot of known members who have helped earn the gang its notorious reputation.
24 people linked to the notorious MS13 street gang now behind bars. Prosecutors say that they are brutal killers who use knives, machetes, even baseball bats in a series of gruesome murders.
The federal indictment alleges a series of vicious murders, some involving machetes, knives, and baseball bats.
On Tuesday, federal and local authorities announced nearly 24 people associated with the most violent arm of the MS13 gang in Los Angeles have been indicted on charges that include racketeering and murder. The gang is believed to have killed 24 people over the past 2 years.
One prominent figure from the set is MS13 member Ernesto Miranda, and it's also Angel Guzman. Well, I looked up some rappers for this gang, but I honestly couldn't find any. Y'all let me know in the comments if I'm leaving out any rappers or OGs from the set. My theory on why I couldn't find any gang members is because most of the headlines were filled with all the gruesome shit they did. This brings us to the danger rating of the MS13s. The MS13s are going to receive a danger rating of a 9.6 out of 10 based off of the gang's history of violence, brutality, and execution of their rivals. Man, I wanted to give them 2 scores, one based on California alone and another of what the gang is known for outside the state, but I just factored all that into what the gang is locally and in their history as well. If y'all want to get an example of how crazy these guys are out of state, just look up Brenda Paz. Watch their Gangland episode, and of course, watch this video from now on.
MS13, these are animals. So when the MS13 comes in, when the other gang members come into our country, I refer to them as animals. And guess what? I always will. But
what y'all think though? Did I go too high or too low? Y'all let me know in the comments. Current state of the MS13s. If you have to ask if the MS13s are still active today, you definitely haven't been outside, and that's fine. That's what you're watching this video for. Nah, I'm playing. But believe me when I say these guys aren't. This is one of the most active gangs in California, and this gang has grown to the point where they have cliques in other states like Virginia, New York, Connecticut, and Texas.
To Houston police, the 2 young men shown here kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and shot a 15-year-old girl, sacrificing her in the name of Satan. In court Thursday, the accused killers smiled and waved for the cameras. From Texas to New York to Virginia, officers are dealing with a rash of murders attributed to a resurgent MS-13, a notoriously violent street gang.
Look, quick questions for the MS-13 members. I found some rumors of some ungodly worshiping, and I didn't want to add that without any confirmation, but is this true or is this a rumor? Y'all, I didn't want to get too deep into it, you know, YouTube's gonna flag me. But anyways, the gang even have cliques internationally in countries like Canada, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico. But y'all let me know in the comments if I'm leaving out your state, man. Right for your state or your country for that matter. Anyways, in the United States, these guys are a force. But internationally, they have the government begging for mercy. In 2012, as El Salvador faced increase in violent crime and homicide rates caused in part by Salvadoran MS-13 members, the Salvadoran government attempted to stem the violence by coming to an agreement with some of the MS-13's highest-ranking incarcerated members. In 2015, when news of the agreement became public, other high-ranking MS-13 members spoke out against the Salvadoran government's effort and were ultimately murdered, and unfortunately, any talks of the peace was done with. This just shows how much the gang has grown since its birth in Los Angeles, California. Even through several gang injunctions and RICO charges placed on them, this gang continues to live on, and their history shows they are not to be tested. That's it for the MS-13s though. You got any crazy stories about these guys? Did I miss anything? Did I get something wrong? Y'all let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it. Y'all stay safe and dangerous out there.